for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Who are you rooting for tonight?
I'm rooting for everybody black. I am.
Welcome to the podcast. First off, thanks so much for clicking the link. Thank you for taking your time out of this Super Bowl Monday to listen to us. So, if you haven't heard, if you don't know the news yet, Kansas City Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers 31-20. Last week, we had done a lot of Super Bowl coverage. We had a bunch of very talented writers come on the podcast. You guys sent me your predictions. I got a bunch of people texting me and tweeting at me before the game, their predictions for the game. So thank you to everybody who sent us stuff and listened to the content and shared the content all last week. Later this week, we're going to have Sam Oj come on to talk to us about the Super Bowl and his predictions and where he went wrong and what he saw. That's going to come out either later today or sometime this week. So look out for that. But first, we need to break down this Super Bowl. And you heard earlier I played an Issa Rae quote from the Emmys in 2017 where the interviewer asked her on the red carpet, "Who are you rooting for tonight?" She said, "Everybody black." That has been my motto since I heard that quote. That's been my motto with NFL quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson's my guy. He's a dog. I love him. He's a Super Bowl MVP in the future. He was a league MVP this year, the first unanimous one ever. We'd love to see that. Patrick Mahomes winning the Super Bowl this year at 24 years old, one of the youngest quarterbacks ever to win the Super Bowl, youngest quarterback ever to win the Super Bowl MVP. He is, like Nick Wright tweeted from Fox Sports, one of the most successful young athletes ever in the history of North American sports. He puts his name in the same league as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown and some of the other great, iconic athletes of the 20th century. So in the 21st century, the 2020s start out with a big bang with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And what happened to the San Francisco 49ers and where did they go wrong? We're going to get into all that and more. I'm very excited for this podcast. But first, we need to talk about where I was right and who was wrong. Because very rarely in this industry do you get to be put on record like we have here, where we have Greg Bishop from Sports Illustrated. He comes on. He tells us that he sipped the 49ers punch. We have the 49ers guy, Patrick Holloway, who we're going to try to talk to during the NFL draft, and we'll probably get a quick update from him, what happened to his 49ers in the Super Bowl. We'll talk to him. Sam came on and told us that he loved the 49ers. He thought their defense was superb. But the people I have to pick on the most, and I love these guys, so there's no hard feelings between us, would be Chip Brown and Mike Harge in Austin, Texas, who I had been telling for the last 2 weeks. I told them, hey, this Chiefs team is good. And, you know, Trent Dilfer came out and said, oh, this feels like the type of team where it's a big quarterback arm versus a very tight, very stellar defense. And I think a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon. They liked that train of thought because that's the easiest train of thought to think of. That was the easiest example, the easiest way to go about things. And I begrudge nobody going the easy way because why work hard when you can work smart? But on this podcast, I work hard for you guys to give you the best content available, and give you the best insight available. And I think I did that because I had been telling you guys all week, and I brought on a bunch of Chiefs guys, and we talked about it, and I had always tried to defend the Chiefs a little bit when we were talking to 49ers fans and talking to the 49ers pickers. I said, this Chiefs defense isn't terrible. This feels like the type of defense that could make a stop when they needed to make a stop and make a big play when they needed to make a big play. And it's a bend, don't break defense, sure, but you can do that when you have a quarterback as stellar as Patrick Mahomes. And I was called wrong. So we looked at who all picked the 49ers. And some of these guys came on the podcast, some of these guys didn't. The ones that for sure did was Patrick Holloway, Niners Nation. Okay, that would make sense. Greg Bishop, Sports Illustrated senior NFL writer, he came on. 49ers check. Sam Oj, Kid Wonder, 49ers check. Chip Brown and Mike Harge picked the 49ers. So it was just me and Jordan Mannix. Chiefs Arrowhead. You can follow him on Twitter. We're the only team that picked the Chiefs. And it made sense at the time, and it makes sense now looking back. So you look at the scores through at halftime, because nothing really happened in that first half to definitively say one way or the other. Nobody who watched that game came into after the first half, going into Shakira and J-Lo, which is another thing we're going to have to get into towards the end of the podcast, how stellar that halftime show was. But nobody came out of that first half with an upper hand, I don't think. We saw Kyle Shanahan play ultra-conservative to end the half, which, as a Chiefs fan, as somebody who's rooting for Patrick Mahomes, I enjoyed. I liked that. I liked that he was very conservative. If we've learned anything from the Super Bowl, I think, going forward, this is for whoever coaches in the Super Bowl next year. It might be John Harbaugh. It might be Mike Zimmer. It might be Sean McVay again. Might be Kyle Shanahan. Whoever coaches in the Super Bowl again next year, this is the key to success, I think. If you have the ball to start the second half, and you have the ball ending the first half as time's expiring, be as aggressive as possible. Because with 50 seconds left in the game, in the first half, you need to drive down and get points on the board because you're going to get the ball to start the second half. And if you can capitalize on that, if you can score 10 points quickly on a team like the Chiefs and put them in a much bigger hole, you go into halftime 13-10, you go score a touchdown, now it's 20-10, and that's how it was at one point in this game. So it makes sense, but I'm saying if you go into halftime with any sort of lead on the Chiefs, I would feel a little bit more comfortable instead of going in at halftime 10-10. I think that's a pretty basic concept, but it's something that we're still struggling with in 2020. In the 100th year of the NFL, we're still struggling with head coaches being aggressive. I think they need to be more aggressive going forward. Analytics has said to us all year, if it's fourth and short, go for it because it just makes sense, especially if you're on your side of you're on the opponent's side of the field. You go for it, you don't punt the ball. This is going to be the new thing, I think, is that if you have the ball to end the half and you know you're going to get the ball to start the second half, be as aggressive as humanly possible. And Kyle Shanahan didn't do that because the last time that he played quote-unquote aggressive, his team ended up losing. And we all remember in 2016 when the Patriots came back from 28-3. I don't need to tell you that story again. So I think that he came in with already luggage. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because Shanahan's another part of this podcast that we need to talk about. But he is going to have more baggage as a head coach than any other head coach in the NFL at this point. Because Andy Reid now has the monkey off his back. He's now he was the winningest coach without a Super Bowl ring. He now has 222 wins and a Super Bowl victory underneath his belt. He's a first ballot head coach into the Hall of Fame when he retires, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But Kyle Shanahan right now has the most baggage of any head coach because now he's blown a lead with the Falcons. He's blown a lead with the 49ers. And I know he's got the Shanahan name. I know all these things, and I'm not trying to be reactive. I'm not trying to tell you, on Monday after the Super Bowl that Kyle Shanahan will no longer be an NFL head coach. But I'm telling you that in 6-7 years, if this is still the albatross around his neck, that we are going to be having a very tough, very difficult conversation with head coach Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan's reputation in big games. Granted, he's now played in 2 Super Bowls as a coach. He was offensive coordinator and head coach. But this is going to be an albatross around his neck going forward. But the Chiefs go into halftime 10-10. They go into the fourth quarter 20-10. And at this point, I was watching this game with a small, close group of friends, and I told them, hey, this is I don't feel very nervous right now because Mahomes still has 15 minutes, and I know he has a cannon for an arm, and I like Andy Reid when he's behind more than I like him when he's ahead. I think he's a very suspect head coach when he has a lead. I don't think that he's able to play well with a lead, but when he's playing from behind and he can kind of play from that behind, everything, throw everything but the kitchen sink at the other team, I think that is when he coaches the absolute best. I think that is when we get the best part of Andy Reid. And in this game, down 10 points going into the fourth quarter, that's what we got. We got a couple plays where they ran the ball deep for Tyreek Hill. And again, this is a game that we knew that Kelsey was going to have a big game and Tyreek Hill had to have a big game. And they both did just that. Kelsey scored a touchdown. Tyreek Hill had a really big play in the fourth quarter. This is the type of game, this is the type of team, this is the type of season that when we look back on it 5, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to remember those players. We're going to remember that type of team. We're not going to remember that they were down 20-10. We're going to remember how well that they were able to play from behind in all the playoff games. when they got down 24 to the Texans, when they were down 10 to the Titans, when they came down 10 to the 49ers. We're going to remember this team being the comeback kids, and I love that. Jimmy Garoppolo, because I think we're done with just the play-by-play. Mahomes, is this his best game ever? No, but for a 24-year-old quarterback to throw 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and almost 300 yards, and only have 20 incomplete passes on 46 attempts, I mean, say what you want to say about Mahomes, say what you want to say about his big game performance in this game. He's the Super Bowl MVP. He's 24 years old, and unlike Aaron Rodgers, who immediately after winning that Super Bowl was kind of, we said, oh, this is going to be one of the best young quarterbacks ever, but he still had that big shadow of Favre. The only shadow Mahomes has right now is the shadow of this season on him. And he had the shadow of last season on him, where he won the MVP and scored 50 TDs. He had that as the bar. He was able to surpass that, got him to the AFC Championship game, got him to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. Now that is the standard for Patrick Mahomes. We're not comparing him to any other Chiefs quarterback. We're not comparing him to any other quarterback in his class. He's of a class of his own. He's not comparable to Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. Those guys are now the second tier. Mahomes is now the quarterback of his class. He has now ascended to that next level. The guys we're going to be comparing him to from now on are the Aaron Rodgers, are the Tom Brady's, are the Drew Brees, because all those guys have a chip. And Russell Wilson has a chip, and I'm not going to take anything away from him. You can put him in that class too if you want to, but for me, I'm looking at him as now he is the leader of his class, of that new generation. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 286 yards. You love to see it. Jimmy Garoppolo did not play bad. And I know that everybody wants to point a finger at somebody for this loss. I'm going to point it at the 49ers defense, who got gassed, it looked like, to end the game. It looked like in the fourth quarter, they finally ran out of steam. A defense all year long that was playing up-tempo, was just kicking the doors down on people. I think they finally got caught with not everything hitting on 100 cylinders. And I'd said this before to people, that when you're a defense like the 49ers, when you're just an NFL defense in general, that there is a time where you hit that wall. And you prefer to hit that wall sometime in the playoffs, before the Super Bowl, where you hit the wall and you bust through and you get that second wind, and what you thought was your peak is actually now just a different level, that you were able to level up. This 49ers defense, I think, leveled up too soon. They hit their peak too soon, and coming into the Super Bowl, they were able to play 3.5 great quarters of defense, but in the fourth quarter, when it mattered most, they weren't able to keep up with the Kansas City receivers. And Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill, incredible games. I'm pulling up their numbers right now for you. Incredible games by those two. But for the most part, it was the lack of consistency. I don't want to say consistency, but the lack of speed that the 49ers secondary had to end the game that really, I think, caught up with them. So receiving-wise, Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions, 105 yards. Sammy Watkins, 5 receptions for 95 yards. Travis Kelce, 6 receptions for 43 yards and a TD. Honestly, like, it was those type of playmakers that we've been talking about all week on this podcast that were able to bust this game open for the Chiefs. So I blame it more on the secondary of the 49ers than anything else. Garoppolo, though, 20 of 31, 219 yards. I've said during the game, if Garoppolo throws the ball more than 15 times, that the Chiefs are in a very good position to win this game, because he threw the ball 8 times against the Packers. The reason why was because the run game was working. But I said the Chiefs' defense is better than you think. Guys, the Chiefs' defense can stop the run if they absolutely have to. And in that fourth quarter, the 49ers played on their heels, it looked like, and they weren't able to run the ball. Garoppolo throws the ball 31 times, ends up losing this game by 11 points. He threw an interception to kind of end the game for the 49ers. I don't really count too much against him on that. I feel like he was trying to make a big play, and I'm not ever going to begrudge a quarterback in the fourth quarter with your team down by 11 with like a minute 13 left in the game. I'm not going to begrudge you throwing an interception there. Like, history is not going to be kind on Garoppolo in this game. I don't think anybody that is flipping through the history books is going to look at Garoppolo's game and say, this guy cost them the game. But at the same time, that second interception is going to get misconstrued, I think. So I'm just saying now, I'm putting it on the record, that I'm not begrudging him throwing that interception. I thought he played a pretty good game. Where do we go from here? Because I always like to ask that question as season's over, as the Super Bowl's over, and we're not going to make any overreactions here, but where do we go from here? For the 49ers, this is a game that you're going to look back, and you played a more competitive game than the Rams did the year before, and you're kind of in that same class of, I don't want to put them in the same class as the Falcons, but you're in that same category as like the Falcons, in that you have the same pieces coming back. You're going to have Garoppolo coming back. You're going to have Nick Bosa coming back, and those are the two most important pieces for you. Kittle got outplayed, I think, today by Kelsey, not by talent, but just by design. Kelsey was able to have more of an impact in this game than Kittle was. He had that really bad offensive pass interference in the first half that kind of, I think, if you really want to be nitpicky here and be first takey here and be undisputed here and be the talk show here, you could say that that's the play that's twisted the Super Bowl in favor of the Chiefs. If you really want to, that is the play that cost the 49ers the Super Bowl. I don't think it comes down to one play like that. I never buy that it's one play that is what changes the entire Super Bowl. Dez not catching the ball, I don't think, changes the Cowboys' trajectory through history. The same way that, Brett Favre throwing an interception in the NFC Championship game doesn't change the Vikings' category through history or the trajectory through history. This offensive pass interference, I don't think, is going to be the flashpoint for the collapse of the 49ers, or the 49ers never making it to another Super Bowl. The same way that 49ers fans acted like when the lights went out the last time they were in the Super Bowl, that was the end of the dynasty, and that this is what cost them, 5 championships. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. That was a bad play by Kittle. It was clearly a pass interference by the tight end. I don't think there's much dispute there. I think, honestly, Kyle Rudolph did the same thing against the Saints, and they didn't call it, and a lot of people were mad about it, and I thought, looking back, they probably can be mad about it. It was an offensive pass interference. That is what separates Kelsey from Kittle, is that Kelsey had been in games like this before. He has been in situations like this before, and while I am not a Travis Kelce superfan, I don't think that he is the best tight end in the league. I think that he is helped a lot by the scheme, and he always kind of felt corny to me. The fact that he was able to play a game that he played today and just play within himself and play within the Kansas City system, that is what separates him from Kittle. And going forward, I think Kittle is going to have an incredible career. I would love to see him on the stage again next year. I think he might be. I think that this is the team in San Francisco that we are going to see in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl multiple times. Especially with the collapse of the Saints and how Aaron Rodgers is getting older, and how the NFC doesn't really have that new guard of quarterbacks. It's pretty much Wilson is kind of the best quarterback in the next 10 years. That's the quarterback you're going to look for in the NFC. They don't have that young quarterback class like the AFC does. So you could see the 49ers being that team coming out again and again and again and playing. So it's going to be fun to see Kittle's career as he continues to get older. But this is the game that kind of is going to distinguish him, I think. For now, at least. This is going to be the play that we're going to remember for him coming out of the Super Bowl. So, that first half, we can't make too much bold predictions on. The second half, it was clearly Mahomes being so stoic. And they cut to the sidelines a handful of times. And I was saying that this is the most serious he looked all season. And coming from a father who played Major League Baseball and was a pitcher, he knows what it's like to be all eyes on you. Everything's on the line. This is it, make or break. He's been there before. He knows what he's doing in that regard. And that paid off. Being the quarterback from White House, Texas, being the guy who played at Tech and was able to continuously keep his team in games. And when you're looking for your next quarterback, NFL GMs, when you're looking for your next quarterback, NFL fans, when you're looking for your next quarterback, fantasy guys, this is, I think, going to be a good distinguisher. Especially guys that listen to the podcast or in dynasty leagues. I'm telling you this going forward. That you want a guy who played for a college team that clearly is going to be good and clearly is going to go to a good team. But what made Mahomes different than Watson, what made Mahomes different than Trubisky, besides the great arm talent, was that while he was at Tech never had a defense that could stop anyone. So he was either playing from behind or playing from really far behind, and they had to throw the ball to stay in games. And he had been in the situation before where his team's down by 10 with 2 minutes left, and he knows I have to score the ball in the next 45 seconds of gameplay for us to win this game. Like, we need to score quickly, and we need to score often. And doing that at Tech, he already had that built in. If we're ever down, we're never really out because I know that I can play and get us back in these games. Tech was in tons of games that they were down by 17, 21 points, and because Mahomes was the guy that he was able to make those big losses smaller or keep games that might have gotten away from other quarterbacks. He was able to keep them in the game. So that is what makes him so much special, or so much more special, I think, than other guys. And it never really gets talked about. Nobody ever is really putting those two things together for you. And watching this game today, as he's sitting on the sidelines, his team down by 10 in the biggest game of his life to this point, the fact that he was able to rally the troops and get everybody going, it was outstanding. It was incredible. And you love to see it. Speaking of things you love to see, and this is where we're going to get into the halftime show, Shakira and J-Lo, incredible. I was not happy when I heard that Shakira was going to have to share the stage with J-Lo. I'm not a big J-Lo fan. Hustlers was fine. Jenny from the Block is kind of overrated to me. I've never really enjoyed any of J-Lo's music or movies. So when she was the headliner and they had international pop star and superstar Shakira playing kind of second fiddle to her, wasn't super excited about that. But the way that they were able to put that show together, the way that the background dancers incredible, the set's incredible, the outfits outstanding, and you saw a lot of weird middle-aged boomers on Twitter tweeting about how, this is the greatest halftime show of all time. I still like Prince. You can go back and watch it on YouTube if you want. I still like his halftime performance a little bit more because I'm not just a simp watching these women, but the performance was incredible. And that, if you are going back and rewatching this game 10, 15, 20 years down the road, if you taped it and you have it on your DVR, and 20 years down the road, you fire up your cyborg son and you say, hey, we're going to watch one of the greatest Super Bowls ever, because I think that it's going to be in that kind of category. It had a lot of things that you look for in a Super Bowl. Now, is it the best ever? No, but it's impressive and it's special to Chiefs fans. So when you go back and rewatch this game, start at halftime, start at the beginning of the halftime performance, and go all the way to the end of the game. And that is really where you need to start, because the halftime performance I thought was incredible. I loved it. Going forward, we need Shakira doing more NFL stuff. I don't know what Jay-Z needs to do. I don't know how he can do that, how he can manage to get Shakira to do the halftime show at the national championship, maybe at whatever games we can get her at, maybe the NCAA tournament. Can we get a halftime performance from her there? We need Shakira in more NFL stuff is essentially what I'm saying. And because amazing, incredible performance by her. So winners of this game: Patrick Mahomes, clearly a winner, Super Bowl MVP. Shakira, clearly winner, incredible halftime performance. Andy Reid, 222 wins. One of the best guys that we talk about in the league. We know the story about his son. We know the story about what he did with Donovan McNabb and how he was really the only head coach in the league who believed in Donovan McNabb. What he did for Michael Vick. And I know the whole... You want to fight about the stuff he did off the field, that's fine. You can argue with the people online about it, because you're not going to argue with me about it. Because on the field, Michael Vick was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, year in and year out. You can't argue with that. Most entertaining quarterback of the 2000s by far. He's even serving his time off the field. By far, the most entertaining quarterback on the field of the 2000s. So the fact that Andy Reid bought into both those quarterbacks and now has totally bought in to what Patrick Mahomes can do is incredible. And you're not going to get another coach who just genuinely likes his players as much as Andy Reid. And, maybe you want to say, well, my head coach likes our players and blah, blah, blah. Great. Just Andy Reid being happy on that stage was amazing. All right, losers of the night, Nick Bosa, who, if the 49ers win this game, he's clearly the Super Bowl MVP. He had an incredible night. Nick Bosa was not, I think, anybody's favorite player. I don't think there's anybody right now saying Nick Bosa is going to be at my kid's birthday party. I don't think anybody loves Nick Bosa like that. But to be fair, which I try to be as much as I can, Nick Bosa had an outstanding night for the 49ers. And winning Defensive Rookie of the Year, I know a lot of people were talking to me this season and they didn't realize that he was a rookie. That's how good he has been this year. So you look at his numbers for the 49ers. 5 total tackles, he had a sack, and he was able to kind of force a fumble too, which I thought was pretty impressive. He had 1 quarterback hit, but he was pushing his will onto this game. His thumbprints are all over this game. So big loss for Nick Bosa because he clearly was going to win the Super Bowl MVP if that doesn't happen. Kittle, another loser. The offensive pass interference, that really cost him. Loser, the San Francisco 49ers front 5. Those guys, outside of Bosa, I thought they were kind of quiet tonight, to be completely honest with you. I know that Ford had a pretty good game for the 49ers. But it's one of those deals where, and, you know, maybe I'm off here, but it's one of those deals where I thought that they had, again, a lot more energy in the first half than they did in the second half. And I'm thinking of Ward, who had a really good night for the 49ers, who was able to have 11 total tackles. Jimmy Ward, 11 total tackles for Ward, the corner. But again, I say, it felt like the front four for the 49ers struggled. The offensive line struggled in the second half. I don't think that's debatable. The run game kind of got clogged up. The Chiefs were able to impede their will. Another loser, because we're talking about thumbprints, the Lombardi Trophy, which, can we all be honest here? We need to make a petition now. And as this deal's winding down, I'm going to make my plea to you. Going forward, NFL, Super Bowl winners, wear gloves. I'm not asking for a lot here. It's disgusting to see all your thumbprints on the trophy as the game's over. Your skin's oily, that's fine. I get it, you just got done playing a game. But as somebody who likes the aesthetic of a clean Super Bowl trophy, all year, we see this on screen all year, how clean it looks, how shiny it looks. By the time we see it the second or third time that it's got passed around the huddle, it's got all these thumbprints on it, and I get that there's like symbolism there that, all the 53 players have a thumbprint on the game, and they made like this difference in the community, blah, 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 blah. That's great. I don't like the greasiness of the trophy. It's disgusting to me. Let's try to keep it clean, guys, because somebody's got to clean that thing, and I think it's gross. I'd rather you, the night of, fine, whatever, but for the parade, please, I'm asking you guys, Kansas City fans, make a plea right now. Let's clean our hands. Let's go. So big shout-outs to Jordan Mannix for Arrowhead. Incredible season by the Chiefs. We're going to get more and more Super Bowl coverage as the week goes on. I'm going to try to get a couple more writers on to kind of break things down. And NBA stuff. We're going to do a lot of NBA talk. And also XFL. That kicks off next week. Should we care? Who are you rooting for? We're going to get a whole season preview later this week. Try to shoot for Wednesday or Thursday, I think. So, very exciting stuff. Lastly, in the immortal words of my friend J.T. Milner, who sent me a text earlier today saying that the 49ers were going to win 31-24 with Deebo Samuel winning the MVP with 100 total yards and 2 TDs. He told me to go ahead and book it. 2020, I'm not gambling anymore. I said I'm not gambling in 2020. That is my New Year's resolution. It is February 2nd, 3rd right now, and you're listening to this probably. I haven't gambled yet. I'm not going to do it, and I'm really glad I didn't take that one to the bank. Please, please, please continue to send our content everywhere. It helps us out greatly. The support is incredible, and I really, really, really like you guys to continue to keep doing that. So thank you for listening to the podcast. Please tell the people you love them when you see them. Remind them often, because you never know how much longer we have. And when our time's here, it's here. Thank you for listening. I'll tune in again tomorrow when we talk more Super Bowl, when we talk more NBA, NFL, and Television Tuesdays tomorrow. Thanks, guys.